The Archivist of Dustwick, a tale built from true medieval oddities, whispered from the pages of forgotten parchment. In a fog-swept town carved into a limestone cliff, there lived a boy named Aldrich, who never spoke above a whisper. His voice wasn't broken. He simply believed that loud sounds made memories scatter. He learned that from his grandmother, who learned it from hers. And in Dustwick, people held on to quiet like others held on to gold. Aldrich worked in the town archive, a place more like a cave than a library. The archivist before him claimed that scent calmed the scrolls, and in Dustwick you didn't question old methods, you repeated them. Every valuable book was locked to a metal bar with thick iron loops. Theft wasn't the worry, it was wandering. It was said that books with dangerous knowledge could walk away if left unbound. The scrolls there were made of treated sheep's stomachs. Vellum, they called it. Smooth, nearly translucent, and expensive. He read quietly. If thou wouldst be rid of pain in the tooth, burn a candle of honeycomb, and whisper a charm to draw out the worm. So precious, in fact, that some scrolls had been scraped clean and written over multiple times. You could still see faint ghost letters beneath the words. Bound in dried cod skin, it held prayers once whispered during the great pestilence. The pages were stained with ash and bitter herbs. Supposedly monks used to chant from it while holding posies to their noses. Some believed sweet-smelling herbs kept away the sickness. Far below, a trail of beggars shuffled toward the church. One man wore a patch over his eye that was common, and the baker. She always carved a cross into the top of her loaves, not for religion, but to let the devil escape before the bread was done rising. In the Middle Ages, a lost eye was sometimes treated with a raw chicken heart pressed into the socket to draw out the bad blood. Others burned lavender in corners to drive out invisible demons. He often wondered what the erased stories once said. They thought toothaches were caused by tiny worms living in your gums. Some even swore they saw one crawl out when the pain subsided. His job was to dust the shelves. Not with a broom or rag, but with a bundle of goose feathers dipped in rosewater. It helps us keep the archive lit for fellow curious minds. He claimed the bees' honey held curative properties, especially when fed tinctures of clove and vinegar. One morning, Aldrich arrived early. The halls were dim. Oil lamps hung low, flickering over rows of chained books. Yes, chained. To cure melancholy, one read, slice an orange, place it in a hedgehog's nest, and bury it beneath a willow tree during the waxing moon. He didn't understand why it worked, but someone, somewhere, believed it did. One showed a man with a bird beak mask, walking through a fog. Aldrich knew this image well. Plague doctors. The beaks were filled with herbs to filter the air, but the shape wasn't just a scare. She was the candle scribe's apprentice. Her fingers were stained with soot, and she smelled faintly of beeswax and salt. She asked if Aldrich had ever read the Hanged Men's Ledger. It was thought the beak gave space for healing aromas, like rosemary or thyme, and ever read aloud from the book with the fish leather cover. Even buttons made of horn or silver could mark you as a criminal. If you wore them above your class, I must pin yellow cloth to my dress, as if my success offends the king. He paused at a scroll left half open, something about toothworms, raised an eyebrow, toothworms. But people believed that back then. Tell us in the comments. Which medieval belief caught your imagination the most? To dream of spiders means gold is near? To dream of a red horse means war, unless the tail is braided. Aldrich felt his way to the center chamber, heart pounding. And maybe that was why the archive survived. Not because it preserved fact, but because it preserved belief. As he closed the scroll, he heard something soft, like breathing. But it was just the wind through the vent shaft. Their light shimmered across the bell jar that held the tongue of a saint, dry, blackened, still slightly curled. Pilgrims once traveled hundreds of miles to see it. Some believed touching the glass would cure speechlessness, that if you ate sweet things, you'd wake in paradise. But beside each name was a note, what they'd eaten the day before their death, a wax-sealed letter written in blue ink. That alone was strange. You welcomed them. You greeted them like forgotten stories, waking up. Blue ink was made from crushed lapis lazuli, a stone once more valuable than gold. To use it casually? Unthinkable. He dipped his pen in blue ink and began to write. Not history, not prophecy, just what he'd seen, what he'd felt. what he now believed. Or so he told himself. The archive had rules. Always walk clockwise. Never open the locked door near the back staircase. That last one had a name, the Plague Psalter. Aldrich had no intention of reading it, but he liked to look at it. The cover shimmered faintly like oil on water. And tap that bell so you never miss the next one from the archive. Trepanning, boring holes in the skull. Was once done to release spirits. Leeches were common. So were powdered unicorn horns, which were really narwhal tusks sold by clever traders. He sat near the window that overlooked the cliffside, shivered and turned away. Dustwick was filled with strange traditions. Every third Thursday, the blacksmith refused to strike metal after dusk, said it woke the mountain. He never questioned it. He just dusted, read, remembered. If you've wandered into this tale and find yourself amazed already, remember to tap that like button. One day, he found a rolled parchment labeled Sumptuary Complaint, Tell 1342. Inside was a letter from a merchant's wife, angry about laws restricting how people dressed. I may not wear velvet, though I sell it, she wrote. Aldrich recalled learning about those laws. Sumptuary laws. In some places, only nobility could wear certain colors. Purple was reserved for royalty. He folded the parchment back and wondered if she had ever worn the yellow anyway. Later that week, Aldrich spotted something odd on the scriptorium table. The letter told of a monk who trained bees to live in hollowed-out bones. Femurs, to be exact. Aldrich wasn't sure if it was madness or medicine. In those days, the line was blurry. He liked reading the field remedies most, and belief had power. Yet the oldest scroll in the archive had no words, just pictures. Some even wore goggles made from ground emeralds. Green was believed to protect the soul from evil. One afternoon, a girl named Alira entered the archive. He hadn't. She brought it out from a high shelf. It was bound in soft gray leather, with ink that glinted like mica. Inside were lists of criminals, mutton stew, cherry tart, ale with 3 fingers of foam. Lyra whispered, "Some believed your last meal shaped the afterlife you entered." Aldrich closed the book slowly. He liked that idea. In a back corner, he discovered another oddity, a codex of dream interpretations. One page read, "To dream of frogs is to expect guests." People trusted dreams more than doctors. And in truth, medieval medicine was equal parts guesswork and ritual. If you've learned something strange tonight, share this story with a friend. The more Aldrich read, the more he realized the line between truth and tale had always been blurred. One stormy night, lightning struck the cliffside. The lights went out. He lit one candle. Then another. He didn't touch it. He sat near the fish-leather book, watching the flame flicker. A mouse scurried by. Its eyes glinted like ink. Somewhere beneath the floorboards, he heard the clink of chains. He didn't move. In Dustwick, you learn not to fear old noises. As the storm faded, he returned to his corner and opened a blank vellum scroll. That strange things can be true, and truth sometimes is strange enough to whisper you into sleep. Before you drift off, make sure you're subscribed for more tales from the forgotten corners of time. And tap that bell so you never miss the next one from the archive.